Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. It is Tuesday morning and we are continuing our story of Joseph on chapter 38, except for the fact we have a little interlude today, a little side story, so to speak. That's quite interesting. So we kind of leave that Joseph is now in Egypt with Potiphar, but now we're going to take a look at one of his brothers, Judah. So what we discover is that Judah kind of leaves the family and goes and finds a wife, a certain Canaanite woman. So he is now going outside of the family to find a wife. And from this marriage, he has some sons. We have and Onan, and then we'll have another one coming on a little bit later. But what happens is when gets old enough, it says Judah finds him a wife, and the wife is Tamar. And what happens is evidently is not a very good guy, and God decides that, hey, he doesn't deserve to live. Now, it says that God was displeased and caused this, but it says that he was wicked. So, some of his own actions could have caused this. So, anyways, he passes away. And as in tradition, what would happen is that the wife is then given to the brother so that the eldest son inheritance can go to the sons, however that works. But Onan does not want it to be considered he wants the inheritance. He doesn't want it to go to his brother's wife. And so it says that every time he went to see her, he would eliminate his seed. So we have one of these wonderful little conversations about why it's not good to do certain things. We won't go into that deep conversation today. But anyways, he would then relieve himself of his seed before he was there, so he couldn't impregnate her. And in that process, this displeased God, it says. And so that he too dies in this situation. And so it's kind of a little interesting thing. So now Tamar is widowed twice and she has produced no children. None of her fault. None of this is her fault. And so what happens though is in the meantime, Judah does have another son. But he's a baby at this point in time. So there's nothing, you can't marry a baby. So she is sent to her father's house as a widow to wait for this next son to grow old enough to be married to her. And what we find out is that in the process, Judah's like, I'm not giving my youngest son to her. I kind of like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? I'm going to lose all my sons. But anyways, what happens then is it says that Tamar knows how all this works. And so she dresses herself up as a temple prostitute, and she puts on a veil over her face so nobody can see her. And it was considered all right to go and visit the temple prostitutes at this time. And so Judah, while he's out, he visits her, but he doesn't have payment at the moment for her. So she's like, well, if you're going to send me payment in a little while, but before you do that, you need to leave your ring, your signet, and your staff, and I will return those to you once you give my payment to me. And he agrees. So he leaves all of this with her, and he goes immediately from his flock to bring her this kid that she is owed. But of course, twist of plot and everything, she's not really a temple prostitute, but she did conceive a child in the process. So she goes back home, puts on her widow clothes, and when he tries to send the sheep to her, she's not to be found, and they're even told there are no temple prostitutes in our area. So we don't know what happened there, but that's not what we do out here. And so, but Judah's like, whatever, I just, let it happen, but I'm not going to keep searching for her. Let her keep that stuff, whatever. So, not knowing that it's Tamar in all of this. Then all of a sudden, word gets around. Tamar is quite the, lady and is now pregnant, and she is not married to anybody. Like, it uses the word in my Bible in English that she's a whore, and that now she needs to be burned is what Judah says. Like, oh my goodness, was this girl sleeping around and doing all this? Like, let's burn her. So she says, you need to come talk to me first before you get this burning going on. And he's like, fine, whatever. He comes to her and she's like, by the way, it's your child. And here's the proof. Here's your staff. Here's your ring. Here's your signet. And he's like, you're right. You're right. I'm in the wrong. He goes, I should have given you my son, and I didn't. And then so what we find out is that she then bears twins by Judah. And it says that they never sleep together again. Like, it was that the trick worked, but there's no relationship that goes beyond this. But she has twins. Now, what's kind of interesting about this story is that it says that one twin is coming out. And so to signify who came out first, because this is important, inheritance and everything, a crimson cord was put on the baby's hand. So that this is the first one that's coming out. But it says that the other child, pulled back that child and came out first. And then the one who was coming out first actually came out second. And they knew that because the second one was wearing the crimson thread on its hand. And so the two brothers come out, and we have Perez and Zerah. I'm probably saying those wrong, but And what's interesting about this, so of course we've learned this throughout the whole Bible about first sons and second sons and what's going on here and inheritance and the fighting and the bickering. So it even's happening in the womb. They're fighting over who's going to be first. But Perez actually happens to be in direct line of the King of David. Because Perez is part of the family of Boaz, Obed, and Jesse. And so this story is not so much about Judah, but it's about the royal family of King David that becomes very important in the birth of Jesus. And so how this family has gotten so intertwined, again, it's like I was saying yesterday, like what God can do with these situations, it might not be known for generations later what God can do out of it, but stuff's happening here. And even though they are wicked along the way, even though they kind of act in ways we would not recommend today, this is what happens. From this little interlude in our Bible, it's not that it's just like, why is it there? It's like, it's there because it's telling us God's working in all of this. But when you read it just as it is, you're just like, what was that about? But that name at the very end, Perez, we're going to then see that much later in another genealogy and in one of those long lists of names that we get. So God is working in the details. We might be making the mistakes, and God has to then work around and through and all of that. But it's so cool. It's so cool that God can take this little disruption and make something amazing come out of it. And so I hope that gives you a little bit of hope, faith, and joy today. And I appreciate you joining me, and we will see each other tomorrow. And so have a beautiful day. Bye.